Have you been in Greenwood much?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Greenwood's a really interesting part of the whole Rock Island Trail project because like that's they call it the Greenwood Connector, and
Yeah,
so I've talked to I have a plan to talk to Cass County Parks and Rec. So I've spent some time. You probably see my podcast with Jackson County.
yeah,
So I've talked to
yeah.
them about their half of that project, and then um, um, Cass County kind of has the other half of it in Greenwood, like
Right.
how they're actually going to connect the part that has Arrowhead on it to kind of the part you're talking about with Eldon and some of the cities down there, right? Sedalia and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So that is a really cool town. It's actually I live 5 minutes away from Greenwood. I'm just literally right
Oh
down the
my
road from
gosh.
Greenwood.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
and they're you mentioned kind of how all these little towns have their kind of their thing that they're really known for. Greenwood is an antiquing town. They have probably 5, 6 different little antique stores along their main thoroughfare down there. And at the end of this year, this section or the northern section of Rock Island will pretty much be take you right into the middle of Greenwood. And then they kind of
Great.
have to figure out. They have about another, I think, 5 or 6 miles to actually make that final connection down to the Pleasant Hill section, which I think is kind of where you'd mentioned that the south section
Yeah.
starts.
Yep.
But that's a neat little town. Like if you're doing your research, you can just kind of run through there and you can see all the little antiquing stores. I'm sure there's probably tons of history and story stuff there that you could probably get from just talking to people. So
Oh yeah, it's kind of amazing because some of the research I'm doing on this, it's like you're probably too young to remember a show called Petticoat Junction or the
I do.
Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, I do.
Any of that stuff?
Yeah,
So all those shows that we grew up with were written by a script writer that lived in one of these tiny little towns along the Rock Island Trail. And
really.
so and they were those shows like Petticoat Junction was like based off of one of these little towns along the Rock Island. And so it's so funny to me because you grow up with this stuff and then later you find that out and it's not that different than like say Walt Disney made some of his Disneyland stuff based off of Marceline, Missouri.
Yep.
Same kind of idea, like
Hmm.
this timeless small town vibe.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of great stories out there to tell. So I'm really chomping at the bit. I think my manuscript for this book is already like 300 pages long. Like there's so much to tell. So the trick is going to be really figuring out how to like thin that back down and really just keep it to the main story.
Hmm.
But it's really exciting, and there's some really incredible museums along the way, as you mentioned, shops, some great bike shops, food, restaurants, and then also some great bed and breakfasts that are like really unique, where you can like stay on a farm and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And like you're really going through different cultures too. Like you're going to be cruising through like that whole section from like Windsor, Coal Camp, Versailles. You've got a huge Mennonite population there.
Hmm.
They call it like the Low Dutch. Language. It's totally different than your and I's everyday cultural experience.
Right.
So that trail really is going to have a lot to offer. It's very exciting.
That's cool. Does that go down? And I may be too far south, but does that head down towards like the Osceola area, or is it farther east than that? Because Osceola is like
Um,
over on 13, but I think that's probably too far west, isn't it?
yeah, I think it probably is. But I mean, as sort of anecdotally, I have heard that the Mennonite population in Missouri has been growing exponentially.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. It's like we don't have droughts, we don't have the fires. You can still buy the land.
Yeah.
It's just a good value,
Hmm.
and there's big population centers of their community here already. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool that we'll be able to get to help tell that story a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. That's really neat. Um, Man, I had a thought and it just gone. Uh,
Well, let me throw one out to you.
yeah.
I think it's going to be real interesting to see how they develop this trail. I don't know that it's going to be like the Katy Trail per se with the chat and this and that. Like there's been some brainstorming about, well, if the right of way is still intact, at some point, couldn't you just open it to people who are like bike packing, where it's just they're on their mountain bike, a little more rugged bike with suspension. Just
Hmm.
let them go, like not have to do all that additional development. Now, with the caveat, obviously they have to rebuild umpteen bridges and do all
Right.
these other things,
Right.
open up tunnels. I don't want to sound too naive, but I just mean like for the vast majority of it, you could kind of argue that like, well, the rail bed is still there.
Right.
So, and I know I don't mean a lot, but some people ride on it already. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, I mean, when they were developing the northern section up here a couple of years ago, um, the project manager of Rock Island Trail up here in Jackson County, and he said, we were in the process of developing it, and we would come back every day, and we hadn't even put down the limestone yet, and there was already bike tire tracks on it. He's like, people are already riding on it. People are already using it because, it's just dirt. It's like, well, what's the difference between dirt and limestone? You're just gonna ride on it anyways. So,
Yeah.
and I suppose because you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'd mentioned that the Rock Island section is not in a river valley like the Katy Trail section is, right? It's up
That's
higher out of the water, so
Yeah.
you don't have
Correct.
to worry about swamping quite the same way that you do with a lot of the river valley trails.
Yeah. Yeah. And it still has that, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it like granite base that they put the railroad tracks
Yeah.
on. So it's kind of like big gravel, basically.
Yeah, real.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. And I think part of this too is that the towns. Earlier you mentioned Cass County or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that blows my mind away, it just blows my mind, is that this Rock Island Trail, it goes through like a dozen counties or something. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so you think about how that probably magnifies the challenges of building a trail like this. I think that we might see some localized solutions that might not be 100% consistent end to end. I'm not sure when it comes to trail surface and things like that.
Yeah.
I do know that right now, Department of Natural Resources, they just hired a new Katy Trail coordinator, and part of that job is also coordinating the development of the Rock Island Trail. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty ambitious job title, and it's a pretty ambitious project. So I think we're all ears, and I know that your podcast is doing a huge part in helping to get the word out there. So I'm really appreciate everything that you do. I'm grateful for that because we need more of this. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I started this. I just started having some conversations with people, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of people out there just talking about trails. I mean, at least here in Missouri, I didn't see a lot of people out there talking about trails. I thought, well, let's have conversations with people and just kind of see how it goes. And you always learn something interesting. And I met you through that process of just kind of interacting with people and talking with people. And I mean, now that I'm talking to you, I'm learning so much from our conversation, and that's making me think well, maybe I should go talk to, all these different counties and be like, so how do you guys handle the interactions between, when you have those boundaries between Cass and Jackson County, and how do you handle the relationship between those to make those trails work? Because like you say, at some point in time, you have to hand that off and pass off that responsibility. Does Missouri own the Katy Trail River Valley? Is the Missouri Parks and Rec kind of responsible for that whole section, or does it work the same way?
So it's basically the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and it's some people are gonna fall asleep right here, sorry, but basically it's called an interim trail use, which means that we used to have this railroad line, and then this idea, the federal government says, well, instead of disbanding that, we're going to allow interim trail use. So then DNR becomes the, what would you call that? The person that manages that.
Oh, the caretaker or the...
Thank you. That's the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
And the idea is that maybe perhaps someday they want to put in a bullet train or something. Well, they could consider that right of way because it's all still connected.
Gotcha.
So the Rock Island Trail is very similar. It's the old Rock Island line corridor. And so DNR is stepping in to take ownership of that, to maintain that right of way. And that's kind of how they are able to move forward with these opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. And it's going to be really cool because I know Washington, Missouri, Jefferson City, Missouri, a couple other towns are looking at ways to also create linkages between the Katy and the Rock Island Trail, like mid-trail as well. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool to see. And even Springfield, I mean, they're working on some new trails too. It's awesome to see quality of life being given such a emphasis. Missouri's kind of known for their conservation department, all the conservation areas. Our state parks are amazing. And then we have this super unique state park in the Katy Trail that's like, what is it, 240 miles long, 50 feet wide or whatever. It's really unusual,
Yeah.
and people are digging it. And so Rock Island Trail, it's just going to leave us speechless. In another 5 years' time, it's going to be amazing to see what can get accomplished.
Cool. Cool. Well, Brett, is there anything else that I haven't covered that you want to cover? You think of me?
I think we covered it pretty good here, other than, when are you coming to Roachport? And let's ride some bikes.
Amen.
And let's just have you shoot some sweet eye candy footage to make everybody want to drop whatever they're doing and like get here to check out the trail.
Well, I want to do that. I definitely want to do that soon. I want to come out to Roachport sometime in the next month and just meet you
Great.
face to face and kind
Awesome.
of see the town. But then I would love to come out in October or like when the leaves are falling, and just we can do some awesome footage this October and get some really cool fall footage of like Roachport and some of the surrounding towns and stuff. So
Twisting my arm. Sign me up. It sounds like a lot of fun.
all right.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's like there's some different really great reasons to ride the trail in all the different seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And really, though, fall by far is like my favorite.
All right. Well, I'll check with my wife. I've got a couple, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old redhead that would love to come out and see the nature. So,
Oh, that's great. That's great.
we'll come out.
Well, I look forward to
I
that.
do too. We'll come out and visit
Yeah.
you sometime in the next month. I'll find a weekend that we can make it out there. All right,
Okay, perfect. Sounds great, Tim.
Brett. Thanks so much for your time. Take care.
Been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
God bless.
See you on the trail.
See you on the trail. Bye.